All right, we're here on Red Belt Podcast, and today I have Dave Kovar. How are you doing today, Dave?
I'm good. Happy to be on the show.
All right, so Dave Kovar is a black belt in so many things that I'm not going to be able to list them. BJJ black belt, I believe, karate, and by black belt, I'm just saying because I don't know what degree, probably like ninth or tenth in karate. So he's been doing martial arts. I would assume before I was born, a long time. Um,
You're saying I'm old, man. It's all good.
I'm headed that way too. But so uh, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Um, Man, I'm a lifelong martial artist. Quick kind of introduction to martial arts. I'm in the mid 60s. I'm about 5 or 6 years old, and my family's on a vacation somewhere in Montana where we lived at the time. And I see a silhouette of a guy on a billboard of a guy doing a flying sidekick, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so that's really like my first exposure. And back in the 60s, kids didn't do martial arts. It wasn't considered, a thing for kids. It was going to make them bullies and tough guys, etc. My folks wouldn't have anything to do with it. So in 1971, I started wrestling in junior high, and then my older brother Tim went away to college for a year and trained in taekwondo and came back and said, "Hey, mom, dad, you got to let Dave do martial arts." And so in 1973, in September, I started training in an American Kempo school, and uh, I loved it from day one. My instructor was very progressive. His name was still around. His name is Hanchi Bruce Jetnik. And what I mean is back then, for some old timers that are on the line, back then, if you were a Kempo guy, and remember, this is 20 years before Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu even came onto the scene. It wasn't even, we didn't even hear about that till the late 80s. But if you were a Kempo guy, then you had to not like, your job was if someone else said they're a Taekwondo guy, that's the enemy. If a Shotokan guy, that's the enemy. The Kung Fu guy, that's the enemy. So there was this culture. We'd meet somewhere and, oh, you do martial arts? Oh, very cool, man. What style do you? Oh, it's not the same style. There was this kind of, our style is the best style. And unfortunately, my instructor didn't have he encouraged us to cross train. So I was able at a very young age to start, Japanese jiu-jitsu and Filipino weaponry. And so he got me kind of on a quest to continue my training. And then about 6 months out of high school, in November of 1978, when I'm 19 years old, I opened up my first commercial facility. I actually took over facility. And so that's been 48 years. So I've been doing this full time for 48 years. And it's been interesting to see how the industry has changed in most ways for the better, I think. But it used to be the Wild West. Like to put it in perspective, Sacramento County has a couple thousand people in it. And I did a business paper for how to open a martial arts school back, when I was in college. I saw the report showed the Yellow Pages had 18 martial arts schools in Sacramento County back then. Now there's probably 300, just to put it in perspective. And so anyway, time has changed.
Yeah. So you said how many people were in your area? Because it's not. I was just there. It's not a small area, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's it was it was about 2.3. Excuse me for 1 second. I gotta mute something. I apologize. I hate to lose. Brian, I apologize about that. I'm at home, and my family and dog were they didn't realize I was on a podcast, so there was a lot of background noise. I don't know if you heard it, but I heard it. So the question you asked me was,
Yeah. What's the population of your
yeah,
surrounding?
I think right now it's 2.3 million people in the valley. So it's a city. It's a legitimate city. It wasn't quite as big then, but there's literally, not 10 times the martial arts schools, or more than 10 times, 20 times the martial arts schools probably that there were. And that's fine. It's like supply and demand is different. A lot more people are doing it. But yeah, there's a ton of changes. In the industry from how it used to be to how it is, and I'm not sure which way you want to go, but I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah. So let's start a little bit with so for people that don't know you, how how big is your school? I know because I was just there. It's big. You have a lot of instructors. You have I mean, you have schools under you.
Yeah,
Can,
we have actually uh, 17 schools that in my company, eight actually 18 schools, excuse me, uh, nine on the East Coast and nine on the East Coast in New Jersey and New York, and then nine in the Sacramento region. These are all corporate owned. These aren't licensed locations, and we've got about 5,000 members throughout our organization. And the school you're at is our headquarters school in Sacramento.
mhm.
And we've actually been at that location for a little over 30 years. And it's we're fortunate in the fact that my brother and I bought it in the early 90s. And we actually when we had one location and we were booming, back in the late 80s, early 90s, the timing in martial arts, if you knew what you were doing, you were just blowing up. And at one time we had over 900 members at that location.
So that location has like three mats,
Yeah.
uh, maybe more than three mats, at least three mats, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Formats. Yep, yep. So
four mats.
I'm bragging here. Yes, it is. By the way, bigger isn't better. Just so you're out there, it's just bigger.
Right.
I'll tell you, our other facilities don't look like that, nor would I ever try to replicate it. We have it because we use it for our corporate office and whatnot. But really, when it comes to running a martial arts school, being lean and mean is a good place to be. Like our newer locations are about anywhere, around 2,000 square feet, give or take. And that's plenty of space. You can run a very successful operation. And one of the things when people, man, how many times did we grab a new location and look at it and think, wow, it's going to be so cool, so big. And then guess what happens? You got to write the check on that rent every month. And that's why being lean and mean is a good place to be.
So you're saying 2,000 square foot total, not mat space, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends on what you get. I'm not saying I'm saying you can certainly do it in that. My first location was 1,000 square feet, and I know guys that have 1,000 square feet all in, including the front desk, etc. It's not ideal, but it depends on what your rent is. You know what I'm saying? Because the key thing to being successful, this is my experience, just what I've learned is that you need to be in a good area. You need to be in an area where people have, that make a decent income, right? But you don't necessarily have to have an A location. What I mean is you don't have to be right on, Main Street, right on the corner of Main Street and
Sure.
First. You don't have to be there, but you don't necessarily. But it would be great. But sometimes what happens is if you have prime real estate, you're going to pay more for it. So I would encourage people to find a really good location that's maybe a little bit off the beaten track. And that way you're not paying quite as much money. Um, and that seems to be a good recipe for success. Otherwise, if you're too in a poor area, like the first couple locations I had, it was all based on where could I get the cheapest rent. That was all that mattered. I didn't do any demographic studies. I didn't know how many kids were in the area or anything like that. It was just, oh, that's cheap rent. Let me go there, right? And the flip side of that is, oh man, I'm going to get this big facility in this A pad right next to Trader Joe's, and yeah, you know what I mean. I'm gonna get 4,000 square feet, and the next thing you know, my rent is $14,000 a month, and I need literally 70 students just to cover rent, let alone everything else, and it can be daunting. So that's why trying to have that in line is important.
Yeah, I actually know tons of quote super gyms that were doing very well and then went under. In
Yep,
fact,
sure.
the gym my instructor Eddie Bravo was at, so he was at
Wow.
the bomb squad. Like, so he didn't own any of these, by the way. He didn't own that. But then Legends Gym was huge, huge gym. Then they had Legends Gym number two, huge gym, tap out gym. It was
Mhm.
the first, the original that I know there's a franchise, the big tap out gym. All those went bankrupt.
Well, I think this is my take on it, and I hope I don't get in trouble with anybody out there, but my perception is what happened is that usually you had some fighter or retired fighter that was charismatic, good guy, and probably a pretty good instructor and everything that partnered with some guy that had a bunch of money that saw UFC was growing. So they hooked together and made without fully realizing all the business practices that go into this. And what happens, Mike's, what I've seen is when you run a martial arts school like a gym, and not like a martial arts school, it has a harder time being successful. And let me explain what I mean by the difference. This is once again my opinion. Is that what I mean is that, like, if you go to the health club that I go to every morning, there's the fitness instructor that teaches the 6:30 class, and there's another one that teaches the 7:15 class, and so what happens? You have all these plug and play instructors that kind of rotate. And a lot of especially big gyms like that do that, right? And so they rely on a bunch of part-time help. But the issue with that is, even if, let's say, I'm teaching the class and I'm a pretty good instructor, okay? I don't, and I teach a couple nights a week, and you're a student, and you come once with me and once with another night when instructor Bob teaches, and neither of us really are responsible for you, so to speak. If you don't show up, who calls that knows you, right? If that makes any sense. And that's kind of the health club model. What I see successful in the martial arts school model is that we try to connect you with an instructor that's kind of in charge of you. So if you don't show up, he's giving you a buzz. He's also the guy that knows when you're ready to promote, what you need to work on. He's giving you feedback, etc. And that's a lot of the bigger gyms aren't set up like that, or they came from a fitness background, and that's not their mentality. And by the way, sometimes they do well, but that's what I see is sometimes can be a downfall of that model.
Yeah. I also have seen, so I think that's a big piece of it. I've also seen some of these gyms that they start out, they have some hype and they're big, but their monthly churn is like 100 and something students.
Hmm.
And so they need to sign up 100 and something students every month. And
Yep.
some, for a while, they can. And then they're just like, but they're perpetually 3 months away from complete and utter disaster all of the time. So some of these big gyms, to your point of having the cost so high, is and part of that's payroll, of course, too, especially these gyms that are hiring big names. Like the original Legends gym was Eddie Bravo, Boss Rutan, Caro Parisian. I'm missing people. Another huge name
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah,
forget. Like those guys weren't going to come cheap, and
yeah.
you're starting out with all these people because you got some investor money. I think you had a business guy running everything. I don't really know. I was a student at that time. I had nothing to do with that business. I just saw it. I saw it was pretty. And so I was like, and then it wasn't there. And another one, and it wasn't there. It was doing good until it wasn't. And so, yes, I will agree with you that the a lot of instructors dream of a facility like that, but like that dream comes with the nightmare of like yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and
stress right there.
yeah, and I think what most people, I know I coach martial arts schools and best practices, right? That's where I spend most of my time. And when I'm talking to a new, someone's got a school that needs some help, they almost always say, "Yeah, just help me get new members, man. I know how to keep them." And then we dig in and we look at their statistics to find out their quit rate is terrible, and they're churning through students like crazy. To your point, and so what our kind of goal is that we try to get a quit rate of 3% or below, which basically means if I have 100 members, I'm not going to lose more than three in a month, right? So if I have a school of 300 members, I need 9 members just to break even, right? And anything on top of that is icing on the cake. The reality is, we have never, as a company, been there for a whole year. The closest we've been is in the high threes. We usually come in the low fours, which is still, honestly, is still respectable. What happens is now you don't have to work as hard. Like I said, if you have a location of 400 members, and you have a 4% quit rate, you need 16 members a month to break even. That's pretty realistic and to do if you know what you're doing, you know how to market. And now what happens is that you don't have to constantly be talking. You're working on trying to generate new members, but when you're using the churn model, it's hard to live that way. Excuse me. And having a good retention and a strong accounts receivable. I'm also not a real big fan of a lot of paid in fulls. And I can argue, if you were to put me in a debate team and you said, give me the benefits of paid in fulls, I could give you all the things someone would say. But I know the reality is, because I've been there, and I've coached people that reached out and said, "Hey, Mr. Kovar, man, I need help. My school's not doing too well." And I'll say, "How many members do you have?" They go, 250. I go, "Okay. What's your rent?" "Oh, it's 4 grand a month." "Okay, that sounds good. How much money are you taking in every month?" All of a sudden, I find out, out of the 250 members, 225 are paid in full and they've already spent the money. right? And now they have no choice but to keep that churn going, right? So when you have a really nice accounts receivables coming in, just what happens and your quit rate is good, that's money in the bank and it's a better lifestyle. And every now and then, if you want to do a paid in full, okay, it's great. We just have to remember it's not your money. And in the state of California, if you did do a paid in full, let's just say for a minute, Brian, you enroll with me for a year, okay? And you pay me $2,400 for the year. And and then 3 months later, you go, I don't want to do this anymore. I want my money back. And I say, I'm sorry, you signed an agreement, said, you got to pay for a year. Well, in the state of California, you can't pay, you don't have to pay for services not rendered, which means if you bring me a small claims court, I'm writing you a refund check. Now, that's not true in other states.
Right.
Okay. But so there's a lot of risk to that as well. And here's one other thing, and we can switch gears, but I remember one time years ago, uh, I had a couple of clients that I was coaching, and one of them was paying their monthly fee, another one had paid for a year in advance. And I remember going, man, I can't get a hold of these guys. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, but Bob's already paid for a year. I'm not worried about him as much. And I focused on that, and I go, wait a minute. I can't believe I thought that. And people think that it's human nature, right? You know what I'm saying? So I want to, I'm getting off on a tangent, but one of the things I would give advice to school owners is don't be seduced by getting a bunch of paid fulls because it's going to come back to bite you, like I've seen happen hundreds of times, unless you don't reduce tuition too much. See, what people do is they reduce it so much,
Yeah.
25, 30%, right? And then on top of that, they pretend like it's their money and they go spend it. So if you are going to do paid in fulls, don't do more than a 10% discount, right? If you want to give more incentive, give them some private lessons, give them retail, give them some special events as an addition. And then number two is put that in an escrow account and take it out a little at a time because it's not your money yet. And that's a way you can manage that. But if you just bring it in the account and throw it in like it's yours, man, I promise you, I've seen so many schools go out of business. And it's not good for the industry because guess what? All the students that no longer are training, they look at the whole industry in a negative way, not just that one particular school. They tell their friend, "Don't ever do martial arts, man. I went to this school, I paid them for a year, and they quit 3 months later. Man, it's a sham."
Yeah. Um, so one going back to what he was saying about retention for people that don't know, and I have the same conversations with people. They're like, "Oh yeah, new members," and also people are like, "Yeah, I just need new leads." They'll even say that, and
Sure.
and that's the very front of the funnel, and that's what people think that they need. I own Red Belt Software, by the way, and as a CRM, I have some stats. And one, I know like almost everyone I talk to is like, yeah, I need more leads. I need more leads.
Right. Right. Yep.
And to the extent why, like, hey, I want to do what people want, and I think I'm the only martial arts software that like we have a bit built-in AI ads. You can run Facebook ads right through the platform. It's cool, and leads are important, by the way.
Yes.
But it's
100%.
like almost everybody's like, yeah, if I get them in front of me, I can close them. And then you look at their ratings, like, oh, it's okay. Oh yeah, I keep them forever. Yeah, you're like 8% churn. And by
Yep.
the way, he's talking about 3% churn. With my stats, you're the top 10% of the industry if you're under 5%.
Yep.
Um, and maybe his stats are a little bit different. If you're 3%, like you're ridiculous. Like he said, like I don't know if you're not maintaining it all yet, but like
No. No. No.
that's
I've
almost
never.
like too good to be true. That's like saying you
There.
have an 80% close rate. That's
Yeah. And
that's
there
hard to
are.
maintain every
Yeah,
month.
I know outliers that do have a 3% quit rate or lower. And usually they're amazing operators that have one location that are heavily involved in the school and they understand retention really well, right? But even when I'm looking at stats, most people quit rate, churn is 6 to 8%. That's what I see a lot when you get down under it, right? So under 5% is respectable. Like I said, three is what we shoot for. And I've had schools that have done it, individual schools that have done it, but we've never as a company gotten to that number. And we actually, 2026 went back a little bit. 2025, our actually quit rate was a little better. But you know what? It's all good. What do you want your quit rate? I'll tell you what you want it. First off, you want to know what your quit rate is. That's the first thing, because most people don't even know. And number two, whatever it is, you want it better. You want to strive to make it a little bit better.
For sure. And I think all this stuff is like people simplify the business and the marketing down to, hey, ads and leads, or whatever gimmick, a new referral program, or whatever thing, or a booth at the fair, and all that stuff is good. I mean, I do all that stuff too. but it's like that. There's way more to it than that, and so but yeah, I wanted to comment that like he's talking about 3% churn. For those of you guys that don't know, that's ultra elite. That's that would put him like probably the best that I've ever seen. If you're at 3%. Um, so we were talking about earlier the difference in the old school and the new school mindset. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, so because I hadn't been in business as long as you, but I've even seen some things change, like pre and post COVID.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But by old school, you're meaning even older school, and
Well,
some people still live in that, right?
yeah,
I think I know what
yeah.
you're talking about. Still, people still there. Some of
Yeah.
them.
So what I guess I meant was, there's this thing, I'm old school. What the heck does that mean? It's all generational, right? Because there's 32-year-olds that say, man, I'm old school. And they're referring to when they were, 15 years ago. And then, of course, I think I'm old school. I think back 70s, but there's guys that are older than me who go, Dave, you're just a pup. I'm old school, right? So it's all relative. But what I think the difference that I see from a martial arts standpoint is that back in the day, and I'm telling, back in the day stories, but we didn't. I fought as a black belt in karate time for the first couple of years as a black belt without any gear. Gear was optional. You didn't have to wear hand pads or foot pads, right? And it was and sweeps, takedowns, okay. Of course, this was not MMA. This was not jiu-jitsu. This was point karate, but it was different back then. And I think the fighters were because were maybe tougher than point karate guys for sure today. All the guys today would beat them for that because the technology's improved. But that generation were they were hardcore guys. They were hardcore, tough and tumble. Certainly, technology's improved, and now we've learned from each other. And UFC shows up and changes everything, right? And uh, uh, but I think the difference as a professional goes is up until, and I don't know when it happened. But it used to be in the 80s and 90s. You could be mediocre and you could make a living teaching martial arts because the supply and demand was so different. And now what happens in 2026, you have to be excellent. That's your starting point. Okay. The only people that are staying in business, let alone thriving in the martial arts world without having their dad loans the building so they don't charge them rent, or their wife's an ER nurse and makes a good living so that the school doesn't have to make much, right? But people are actually supporting their family teaching martial arts. The starting point is you have to be good, period. And what I mean by good, what do I mean? First off, you have to have the business practices in place, right? You have to be, an excellent teacher, and you have to understand business procedures that, how to retain students, how to generate new members. And it's still a great time to be in the industry if you really work it. But what I see so many people doing is they all want done for you stuff. Like, and you're in the software business, so you get this, right? I don't have to do anything. Just send leads my way. Well, it doesn't freaking work that way. You can do a certain amount of that, but you got to be able to roll up your sleeves and do the grassroots marketing. And hell, let me give you some. We're really good. Not me personally at keeping stats, but my team is really good, and I'm good at looking at them. Okay, and meaning I understand the importance of following stats. I'm not the guy that likes to keep stats. I've always had someone around that kind of helped me with that. But we get 54% of our leads that we get are from social media, from online presence. The things we do, Meta, Google, etc. Right? Our website. And that means whatever it is, what 46% is grassroots. And what I'm talking about is old school stuff, asking for referrals, buddy days, self-defense clinics, park moves, etc. But here's what's interesting.
You get your
60,
members from that other piece. Yeah.
65% of our members come from our grassroots stuff, which means literally if we didn't do the old school grassroots stuff, which almost everybody quit doing when COVID happened, including us, okay, we would have 1/3 as many new members as we did. Right. So having an online presence, and by the way, we're pretty, we're on it. I mean, we do all the cutting edge stuff, or at least most of it. We analyze our stats, we test ads, our website, we're doing all that stuff, and we'll continue, and it's important. But man, if you're not actually walking up to a member and saying, "Hey, man, Brian, I'd love to have another member just like you. Do you have any friends that could join could benefit from the program?" Like proactively going out and doing things to recruit people, you're missing the boat because that's probably now more powerful than ever because nobody does it. They used to be everybody did that, right? But now nobody does it. So like a real, and I'll tell you what, AI. When you think AI, what tops to mind, right? Artificial intelligence. Well, let me tell you what I think the other AI is that's equally important, and that is authentic interaction. And that if you want to really be successful, your students need to know that you're connected to them. Because what happens is logic and emotion are like oil and water; they don't mix. And what I mean by that is if you can develop an authentic connection with your students, they will train with you. They'll drive by three other martial arts schools to train with you. You know what I mean? They will pay more money to train with you because they have a relationship with you. And that's something that AI, man, you got to be artificial intelligence. You got to be on it. You got to be using it. But that's there's the human connection. I think is our secret sauce that's going to keep us relevant.
100%. And I think because I'm a BJJ guy. We do other stuff at my school too. I don't teach, but we teach other stuff. But I'm um, I'm a BJJ guy. A lot of my listeners are too. And I will say what he's talking about. Hey, you have to be good. Like so, BJJ had a boost recently. It had several boosts. It had the MMA boost, it had the influencer boost recently, and it had all this stuff. And it did more recently what happened with karates in the karate in like the 80s, the Karate
Yeah,
Kid, whatever. It had
absolutely.
all this stuff. And the additional thing is BJJ black belts used to be pretty rare. And I'm not saying you see them every day at Walmart, but they used to be really, really rare in that fact that you could be absolute garbage at business and you're just the only BJJ guy for a round. You're not even a good coach in some cases,
Yeah, yeah.
and you would have success. And a lot of these guys, uh, uh, you, it's rough when you didn't get to learn business practices from your coach, right? So like, oh, I'm just doing what my coach did. He did good. It's like, well, but that was a different age,
Yeah.
and your coach was the only BJJ guy around.
Well, I tell you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have a
Yeah.
lot of commentary on that, right? I could not agree with you more. I'm a BJJ guy too, right? I started in '94 with Cesar Gracie. I literally 6 months after the first UFC. We've been hearing about, the Gracie family forever, right? And he opened up a school in May of 1994, and I started in June of that year, right? And so it's been my main focus for the last 30 years. And what's interesting, to your point is that it used to be if you were first off, if you were Brazilian and a black belt, that's all. It didn't even matter. You could show up 20 minutes, a half hour late. There are people beating at the doors. And
Yes.
now there's so much jujitsu. As a matter of fact, half the schools in the country now are jujitsu schools, and it's only going to become more. And I understand the reason is now all the same rules apply that applied for karate guys and taekwondo guys. They have to follow the same model, and that's what's interesting as a coaching division is that now I'm seeing that a lot. And I'm seeing I'm getting a lot more people that teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They're going, how'd you do that again? Let me get, and also if you want the bottom line in the industry, where are all the adults going? They're going to Muay Thai schools or Jiu-Jitsu schools. There's an occasional karate or taekwondo school, that has.
Maybe Krav also. Krav is getting a little
Well,
traction
Krav,
also still.
Krav is kind of, in my opinion, it's a wonderful art, but it's not at its peak as it was 10 years ago,
For
right?
sure.
It's definitely not. I don't think it's necessarily, in my opinion. Hey, man, nothing but respect for all arts. In my opinion, it's not. It's kind of losing some ground. That's what I see, and which is unfortunate because it's got a lot to offer. But so anyway, the rules apply. If you run a jujitsu school, you gotta be tight on your systems just like every other martial arts school, and you used to not have to be.
Yes, and you probably didn't get a chance to see a quality business practices that you might have if you were a Taekwondo guy. Then there's a really good chance you got to see. There's levels of quality, but at least some decent business systems because those guys usually do. They're running most of them running the same model, and they're running at least okay practices on everything. Just throw a dartboard at a dart a dart at a dartboard at Taekwondo school. It probably got some business practices going on. With the BJJ gyms, it's like, especially if you say, hey, when we came up, we rewind 20 years, throw a dartboard, and 20 years is not even the beginning of BJJ.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and so, like, BJJ school, cool. Did your guy speak English? High five. but yeah, it's like people show up late, and a lot of people I'm talking like they okay, maybe they're going up to the minimum. They're maybe not showing up late. Maybe they got a little bit, but like I'm that's why I like bringing these guests on, like Dr. Joe, talking about how to talk to students because they're like, there's more ways to coach than just, hey, if you have this outlier guy that it doesn't matter, you can yell at him, whatever, as long as because he wants it to make it his life, making him win matches, and that's cool. I'm glad you can make him win matches. But like, how about everybody else? How can we like really enrich people's lives for a normal person that comes into a school and many BJJ guys don't know. They don't know that that's part of being a good coach. And it's just
Yeah.
like such a stab in the heart. It's like, you may not be the best coach. And it's like, ugh, they don't even want to hear that. But
Well, you know what's interesting? I'm going back a million years, and this is, like I said, way before jiu-jitsu hit the scene. And in the '80s, I had my school. I didn't have I couldn't even tell you how many students I had because I didn't keep very good track of stats. But we would compete a lot, and our students did really well. And I was so proud of, look at my students. Look at how well. What it was is that I'd scared away all the people that really needed martial arts training. The only people I had were tough guys, that didn't really need this anyway. And
right,
to your point, man, we got to be aware if you're teaching any art, but let's take jujitsu, for example. Your student, you want some guy, he's 35, 40 years old, he's got a wife, he's got a family, he's got a career. He's got a job he's got to be at. He's got to be healthy, man. It's like if you're a gym where the focus is, hardcore training, yeah, that's fine for an elite group of people. You know what I mean? But your main student body, you got to be, you got to be aware of your audience and make sure that your classes are safe. And that's why, kind of like years ago when CrossFit first hit, and I was already when CrossFit hit, I was in my 40s, right? Uh, when it was at like late 90s, early 2000s or something like that. And I remember going and doing some training, and the coach I had was really young, and I got hurt trying to do one of the routines, because he didn't understand. Hey, this guy's a little older, right? It's the same thing with jujitsu, especially if you have a young coach, you got to be extra careful because they just don't know. They don't know that, and that's why I encourage people especially if they're middle aged and they're going to get into jujitsu, find an instructor that's been around a little bit that gets it, that's already had to deal with a knee injury and a back injury and a busy schedule, because those guys generally tend to kind of be a little more protective, and a little bit more guarded of their students and making sure class is going away to where people can function in their everyday life afterwards.
for sure. And I think that's not even elite. That's like the minimum that most people aren't doing. And that like, but how do you interact with these people? Because you were talking about this before with uh, you were talking about, hey, having a coach that's responsible. Hey, like, hey, where are you? And this, like, getting to know and nurturing people. And I don't know that most people have a recipe for that. That some might be doing it intuitively. But
Hmm.
like, especially at scale, I'll say you have 20 guys, you're doing good. Okay, you have
Hmm.
100 guys, you're doing medium. You have 150 guys, you're actually doing awful because there's no scaling and systems for
Hmm.
it. And then it's like, oh, I'm stuck. I need more leads. Um,
I got it. Well, I know I'm not doing a plug, but I will. That's kind of what I do, is that very thing, is help people kind of figure out how to run that. You know what I'm saying? That's what Kovar Systems does, is we help people that have hopefully, have the right intentions and are, good instructors, have, their head is in the right place, and we help them have the systems behind all that to really make that work. Because I look at it like this. You need two things to be successful, probably more than two, but the will and the skill. And what I mean by that is the will to want to grow your business, right? And of course, the will and the skill when it comes to martial arts, of course, but the skill, a good practitioner is super important. But I'm talking about, all right, the skill to actually know how to run a business, right? How to enroll new members, how to keep the members you have, how to train your staff. And that's not easy to do. And some people can get a big chunks of it right just based on common sense, but there's some unique things that can really make a big difference.
so in terms of how to keep the members you have, um, so to get a free sample of your stuff,
Yeah, of
right?
course, I'm
Like
happy
what
to share
what
whatever,
what would
man.
be a good
Yeah, I'll
because we
give
have
you.
limited time, what would be a good, hey, how can I what are most schools not doing now to keep
Well,
more
I'll tell
members
you
in
for
the habit?
starting point, there's three things that you should do nothing's going to guarantee they're going to train for the long haul. But if you can do these three things within the first couple of months of training, you're off to a good start. Number one is get them in the habit of coming to class. And this is what I mean by that. Most people, once they register, boom, okay, you're signed up. Great. I'll see you Tuesday, Thursday class. Guy doesn't show up Tuesday, doesn't show up Thursday. He's very spotty. Next thing you know, he's quit. And usually people quit not because they didn't like your program. They never got in the habit. They never quite established the habit. So, because right now they've already got some other habit they're doing Tuesday, Thursday night. Maybe it's watching Netflix. Maybe it's sitting in the backyard smoking a cigar. Who knows? But we have to do is help them establish the new habit. On Tuesday and Thursday, you go to jujitsu. And so what does that mean? I'm a fan of standing appointments. Okay, so Brian, you just enrolled in my school. You're going to be here Tuesday, Thursdays. That's at 6 o'clock. Look forward to seeing it. If for some reason you can't make it, please reach out and let me know. I'll be expecting you. And if you don't show up, in most softwares, I'm sure your software does this, right? Most softwares will send out a text saying, "Hey, Brian, where were you? You missed class," right? Of course, automation is great, but if it happens more than once or twice, actually picking up the phone or another thing that I love doing is actually picking up my phone and actually videotaping them. "Hey, Brian, missed you in class, man. Any chance you can make up tomorrow? See you then." Takes that long, send it out, and that's authentic interaction, right? So that's number one. Get them in the habit of coming to class. Number two, I call it a white belt moment. Help them develop a white belt moment, and that is that moment when you fell in love with martial arts, right? Like, and what does that mean? You can never say this is going to be your white belt moment right now. You don't know what it's going to be, but your intention is to be able to create a class and look for opportunities to have someone see the light bulb go on, right? So now I've got them to have to come to class. I got them to develop love martial arts, and then the third thing I got to do is I got to get them thinking long term, right? I got to have them future pace where they're going to be in 4 or 5 years if they keep training, and I got to refer to that a lot. And what I'll do is I'll talk to them about the difference if you're someone that does jujitsu a couple times a week, or are you a real practitioner? And if you're like a legitimate martial artist, this is what you do. You'll find a way to navigate through the challenges. If you're just someone that's training this for a couple times a week, something's going to stop you in your tracks. You're going to get an injury, you're going to get sick, you're going to have a busy work schedule, family, something. All of a sudden you're not training anymore. But if in your mindset, I'm a martial artist, that's what I am, you'll find a way to navigate through those challenges. And so those three things, if you can do that, then you stand a really good chance of keeping those students for an extended period of time.
So on that third one, let's talk about that because like I think a lot of instructors do say a quote like that from time and time again, but it's like it's awkward to say every day. And like how exactly do you keep delivering that message?
I think, there's an old like Persian proverb, you never step in the same river twice. And what that means is that, how many times have you practiced an armbar from the guard?
I don't know, lots.
Okay. So if you came up to my place and I was teaching class and I taught an armbar from the guard, would you go, "Oh, I already know that"? Or would you go, "Oh, let me see what he's doing different. Let me see how he's got
Yeah.
that." Because you understand the value of the review, right? And
Hmm.
and so what's happening is that as an instructor, let's say I taught you the armbar from the guard 10 different times over the course of the year. Each time you're in a different place and I'm in a different place. So it's different. You follow me? So the point is you can't over talk about it. Literally, you can talk about every class, like in some way, shape, or form. You can refer to it as long as you're authentic. Then it's fine, right? You might not say it the same way, but you're constantly, that's why people have mantras. That's why there's people who have student creeds. That's because it's so important to kind of drill that stuff. That's why we memorize the Pledge of Allegiance when we were a kid, right? It's like programmed into our memory banks. And so that would be my take on that. Is you just don't assume. Most of the time, we assume when a new member comes in that they understand. So we got to remind them. This is what I tell parents. Last night I did an online orientation to all new parents of our program. And one of the things I said is that, "Hey, man, I just want you to know right now, you look at this, Mr. and Mrs., brand new parent of a student that's been training for a couple of weeks. That's the people in this. You look at this as an activity like you would gymnastics or dance. My job is to show you that this is a lifestyle. And my goal is to have your child stay with us till they go away to college. And there's this, and then I'll explain all the benefits of martial arts and why long term, and then, okay, they heard that from me last night. They're going to hear that from their instructor at some point, in some other way, shape, or form almost every time they come to class. And we do the same thing with our adult students. And so uh, um, it's just a great reminder. It's kind of like showering, man. You got to do it every day. Motivation is like that. You can't just do it once. It's not a one and done.
And so, should an instructor has to find a way to like vary the talk and keep it interesting, like right before they show circle up, or maybe it's before bow in or whatever it is. It's like
We
instructors got
find
to
it's
find a way to say it
Yeah,
different.
we find it's best at a peak when people are really fatigued, and then you bring them all together because they're more eager and receptive, right? And it's kind of like people remember stuff when they're clear mentally, emotionally centered, and physically energized. Like that's when stuff sinks in, and that's when we find the best time to have that experience.
So you mean at the end of class or not at the end
Yeah,
of
yeah, at
class?
the end of
Like
class or
maybe the middle?
maybe after a hard round, I'm talking about, hey, yeah, let's gather and let's talk about something for a minute. That would be the time to do it.
So if you're doing like a technique review and then that, would you do the technique review first, or you would do the and remember? Um,
I would do like at the technique review at the very end of class or during at the
no,
beginning.
if you're like, hey, circle up, guys. By the way, make sure to keep pressure in while you're doing that pass. And then also remember, long-term consistency beats short-term intensity, or whatever quote you
I think it can happen anytime, but organically, I like it more at the end of class after a good hard training, right? I will usually do it like what oftentimes when I'm teaching class after the training, I have them review. I spend the last 5 minutes having them review the techniques we did at the beginning from because I that's how I remember stuff better. And so we hard training, I'll bring everybody together and I'll say something along the lines of, man, we'll have them do a shout out. Who's got a shout out for a teammate? Oh man, Bob is getting really good at his closed guards, really looking good. All right, great. Hey man, I was finally able to get a submission, that kind of stuff. And then, and so the next thing I want to remind everybody, how many guys have ever walked off the mat after class thinking, hey man, I did a pretty good job? Your hands go up. How many guys ever walked off the mat thinking, what happened? I suck. Your hands go up. Well, guess what? That's jujitsu and it's going to happen. But here's the key thing. All you got to do is keep showing up. Some days sometimes you're going to feel like you're getting better. At times you're not. But I promise you, you keep showing up and you keep trying, you're getting better. And I'll give that talk pretty much every time I teach.
And so the shout outs, I like that. I don't know if I've heard exactly that one before. And so that's at the end of class, like after rolling round, say, and it's it's a shout out for another person, or it's a shout out for
Yes,
yourself.
absolutely. It's like this is what I do. It's like I'll say it'd be something like this. All right, guys, who has a shout out for a teammate? And often, and the culture is such in our schools, if there's a new student that came in, hey, I just want to let you know, Bobby, I was his partner. He's only had 3 classes, and he's really getting good at that. That's one of the other students doing it. Everybody clap for Bobby. All right. Hey, who else has got one? Oh man, I tell you, so they're complimenting teammates, right? And then that's usually how we do that. And if I see something, I'll make a shout out as well. Especially what I'm looking for is I'm looking for someone that the all-star, the kick, the badass in the group, yeah, they don't need to shout them out. Everybody gets it. You know what I'm saying? But it's the people that have made progress, right? Or the people that gave a great effort on something. That's who I'm gonna single out as best I possibly can. And then because inevitably, I don't know about you, man. There's plenty of times where I go, I don't want to go to class today. Oh man, I have some bogus excuse, and I go train anyway. And guess what? At the end of class, I'm always glad I did, right? And I'm not the only one that probably thinks that. So I try to call that out. All right, guys. I'll even say this. All right, man. 20 people on the mat today. I don't know how many of you, but there's a few of you here. Don't raise your hand. Didn't want to come to class today. Somebody here didn't even had to talk themselves into it. Sat out in the parking lot going, "Oh, I don't really want to do that." How many guys are glad you came? Every hand goes up. Boom. All right. Remember how you feel right now, because that's going to get you back training in a couple days. Right. Remember how you feel right now and how glad you came. So when that voice comes into your head, says, "I don't feel like training today," remember how you feel right now.
Awesome. So what percentage of the coach's job would you say is individual coaching versus this is kind of, I guess the shout out's individual too, but like group maneuvering. Uh,
Yeah, and we have a we have a very kind of kind of specific way of doing this, and we have a Basically interaction happens, is it's first off, it's group interaction. So one of the things that happens is that I will, after we teach a technique, if I see two or three people that are doing something incorrectly, I will usually share it with the whole group. I'm not going to say Brian's doing the move wrong. I'm going to say in general, hey guys, make sure when you're passing guard, make sure, and then I'll give them something that they need to work on. I'm telling the whole class that, right? But I'm really targeting on those two people. But it's usually a good review for everyone else. And then if they're still not getting it, then I'm going to walk over and I'm going to get them one-on-one attention while the class is going on, right? And so I'm going to try to work nurture both of those in, okay? But I think what's super important, I don't care who you are, everybody likes a pat on the back, okay? And is when you notice somebody doing something well, once again, especially somebody that stepped it up, not your all-star, you walk up and you say, "Hey man, Brian, I was watching you train with Joe. Good job today, man. He's a purple belt. And you just got your blue belt, and you were hanging tough with him. Way to go. I'm seeing great progress." Poof. You might forget that you had that conversation with him, but guess what? He will remember that. As a matter of fact, he's going to go home and tell his wife about it. He's going to play that back in his head several times, and that could be the thing, because maybe he didn't feel like he was getting any better at all, right? Maybe he had a different perception, and me noticing that got him through his low spot. Because remember, training doesn't go like this. It goes up and down. You have good days and bad days,
Yes.
right? And so our job as an instructor is just to get him to come back to class one more time and one more time and one more time.
Yes, 100% agree. With the like, people think progression is like that, especially in BJJ, probably just about everything you can imagine. But it's like, yeah, it's you all sorts of stuff for sure. And but it's hard to see for the student. The student
Yep.
is like, hey, I'm plateaued, and sometimes they're not plateaued, but they feel that way. Hey, I'm getting worse. It's like, if
Yeah.
you're showing up in training, you're probably on the right path,
Yep.
but it's hard to see. And
Yep.
as
No
coaches,
doubt.
we need to be encouraging like that for sure. So you talked about like, hey, you have a specific way of doing things. Do you have a certain formula for not just the technique? Because I think people are doing a little bit better on that in the industry, but like the other pieces, the
Yeah. Yeah.
encouragement and the things like you were just talking about. Is there
We
a class
call it, we call
formula
it
to
one of the
that?
phrases, one of the things we go praise, correct, praise. And what that basically means is we try to have twice as many praises as corrections to the student. And it's people of all ages. Pat Riley, the famous NBA coach, with some of his athletes, he had a 5-to-1 praise to correct ratio, right? So the whole idea is that we're going out of our way to, and this is what I do with new instructors. I teach them how to catch people doing things right, because we think an instructor's job is just to make corrections, right? That's important. But if all you're doing is walking over and making corrections, sometimes people guard is up. Oh, another thing I'm doing wrong, great. But if I can get in a habit of giving sincere praise and feedback about things they're doing right, first off, people, that's encouraging. But secondly, now when you've got a correction for them, they don't feel like you're picking on you. They're more receptive to that. Stephen Covey calls it building up the emotional bank account. And like if you're always nitpicking somebody and picking they're just not as receptive to your input. So that would be an example. Another example would be what we call the 3x3 rule. And the 3x3 rule has to do with, every class, my goal is to have a personal communication with you 3 times. Okay. So, and by the way, not just use your name, but look you in the eye and make some kind of body contact. So if I go, uh, "Hey, Brian, good job today. Hey, give me a knuckle bump," and I used your name, I looked in your eye and knuckle bumped you. That's 1-3. That's one. I try to do that 3 times with every student during every class. That way, even if I have a big class, you know that I knew that you were in class versus just being kind of a fly on the wall, right? And people go where they're appreciated and respected and liked. And that's a way, even though you might really like and respect a student, but if you don't have that system, you may forget to go say hi during that class, right? And when you have an intention, when you have a system, you might not get everybody 3 times, but guess what? You're gonna get to everybody at least once and probably twice and maybe 3 times, which is which is going to make a big difference in their retention.
Um, Very much agree. I will say, it just popped in my head. I read an article a long time ago about like, hey, if you're not, and I strongly disagree with this article, but not for the reason a lot of people think, is that it was talking about in BJJ. It's like, hey, there's a world champion in every weight class every year. And then
Mhm.
basically it's happening like, hey, all you instructors, you're about to be gone because It's every school is going to be run by a world champion, and every other one is going to go out of business. And I get the general idea they have there. The idea is, hey, there's more, and only the more elite are going to survive. But that's not the area of elite that really matters. The area of elite is what we're talking about. So
Mhm.
I think instead of, oh, this guy was able to armbar that, like, so here's another quote. An average student can't tell the difference between a blue belt and a black belt. And
Mhm.
I believe that. Like a brand new student, they can't tell the difference. They both can crush them. What they can't tell can tell if they care about you and are doing
You-
like so. This is it right here. This is what you need to be doing if you want to be the actual elite that's going to make it. Um,
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. It's a very cliche line. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, but there's a lot of truth to it. And it's like what, the elite athlete. Hey, man, I love going to the elite athlete seminar, right? The cutting edge guy, and that's always going to be the next guy. I know some old guys that are super talented that aren't able to do many seminars anymore because they're beat up and old, and no one really wants to go with the old guy anymore, right? And that's in that seminars format. But as far as running a school, yeah, like I think being a world champion is lovely, and I'm certainly not one. So who am I to, it's so easy for me to say it doesn't matter, right? But I don't think that's the most important thing. You got to know your skills, but my experience has been an athlete and an instructor are two completely different skill sets. You know what I'm talking about? And it's great if you have both. But just because you're a really high level practitioner does not necessarily mean that you're going to be a successful school operator or instructor.
for sure. And I've met a whole lot of broke world champions, by the way.
Yep. Yep. Of
So
course.
it's like if that was automatic, if that was the magic sauce, then I wouldn't have met so many of those people. So if you're not a world champion, which most of your listeners probably my listeners are probably not, hey, take heart. Like you do need to develop skill to communicate it, but like that's not the big thing. Um, so yeah, this is this is more important stuff here, and so we are coming near our close. Do you have any particular things that you could uh, leave a school owner with? Like if there's a final little thing that's really going to change.
Yeah, yeah. I would say it's never easy. It's never easy. I've been doing this a long time. I've got a better sense of what to do. I'm still learning, but but because it's not easy doesn't mean it's not worthy. Like think about it. What can you do running a school? What can you do? What career can you have where you're doing something you love? You're supporting your family, making a positive impact on your students, and there's no stress. Doesn't exist. Nothing's easy, right? And once you understand it's hard, that makes it easier by default. And then what I would do is, first off, don't compare yourself with other schools. It's a waste of time. Everybody's running their own race, right? Just make your school the best you possibly can, and then have a plan. But don't get too caught up in the plan. Every day, show up, roll your sleeves up, and stick to basics. Teach great classes. Make sure to ask for referrals. Make sure people are paying on time, right? Make sure you're planting seeds for future instructors, and take care of yourself personally because that makes a difference. And then guess what? Come back and do the same thing tomorrow. And it's not sexy, but it's really effective, and it creates a really nice lifestyle. I've appreciated being on your podcast, my friend, and nice getting to know you a bit.
If people want to follow you, are there good places that they can go to follow you on maybe social
Yeah,
media?
I'm on Facebook. I'm Dave Kovar, and Instagram. I'm Hanshy at Hanshy Dave Kovar. If you want information, if you're a school owner, and you want to know more about what we offer as far as services, you can go to Kovar Systems, KOVARSYSTEMS, and we've got a bunch of help if you want to be a better instructor or better business practices. Check us out. We'd be happy to have a chat with you.
All right. Thank you so much for being on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks. It's been a pleasure being on.